Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to join you. My name is Penny Johnson. I'm a faculty member in the Administrative Professional Program at Madison College. In today's presentation, we're going to talk about tips and tricks for helping to manage and organize your work. I love giving this presentation to IAAP chapters because we're the folks who are already experts at managing and organizing work. It's the core of what we do. And this presentation is really just to remind ourselves of what we're good at, share some new tips and trends, and also maybe polish up those things that we've left along the wayside and bring them back up to speed. So before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I began my career in the AP field straight out of high school, like many people my age. I didn't go to college to earn a degree as an administrative professional. I just went to work. My first job was as an office aide in a furniture store. So I was one of the people in the back of the store helping to process the paperwork and all that sort of stuff. It was a job I thoroughly enjoyed. Throughout my career, I worked my way up the ladder, eventually becoming an executive assistant to a vice president. That was a job I cherished, but I soon realized it wasn't what made me feel my best. I liked being out there in the action. So I transferred to another position as an administrative professional supporting 6 managers, and that's the job that I loved best. I spent 7 years there, and what I loved most about that job was not only did it let my expertise in helping others shine through, but it also took a lot of management, coordination, and organization, all the things that APs are good at. So now I'm a faculty member. I always kind of knew I wanted to be a teacher. I enjoyed every opportunity to volunteer, teach anywhere I could. So all the time I was working as an AP, I took classes. I took college classes and eventually earned my PhD from the School of Education at the University of Wisconsin. And those two passions got the opportunity to marry in my current position. I teach future administrative professionals and also actually current administrative professionals who were like me working in the field without a college degree. If you're interested in learning more about how a college degree might help advance your career or teach you new skills, I'd like to encourage you to go to madisoncollege.edu. We're located in Madison, Wisconsin, but the good news is we're 100% online, and we've been online for 19 years. We were first endorsed by IAAP in 2001, and we work closely with our IAAP members who are trying to achieve a college degree, either for job security or job advancement. We also transfer into 4-year bachelor degree programs. I believe, if I remember accurately, that our current curriculum allows up to 28 credits in lieu of your CAP. Your CAP brings with you what we call credit for prior learning. For example, I teach the internship class. I don't need you to take an internship, right? So we give you credit for that class. If you have any questions, search out our website, or you're welcome to contact me at any time. Just shoot me an email, which I'll share at the end of today's presentation. All right, now let's get back to work. We're going to talk about managing and organizing your work. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to start out by talking about project goals and why they're so critical and what role do we play as administrative professionals in developing and nurturing project goals. We're going to talk about specific tactics and tools for organizing your work. We're going to talk about all the ways in which you can master your workload. So when we're dealing with projects, a typical AP has multiple projects, multiple managers, multiple people asking for demands on their time. So how do we balance? How do we master all of this? And then finally, we'll review some fresh reminders about establishing a work-life balance, which is especially critical in today's environment where we're definitely not working in the norm. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by talking about our project goals. I do want to pause for just a second and encourage you, if you're on your laptop, to open up a Word doc or a notepad Or if you're a paper and pencil kind of person, grab a piece of paper. I'm going to ask you to jot down notes and thoughts as we move forward. I typically give this presentation live, and I use our chat feature to share ideas. For today, I'm going to need you to jot down your ideas, and then you can share with your branch members at a future date. Okay, so how do administrative professionals play a role in project management? We're going to talk about 4 things: establishing the clear goals, as I mentioned, but also then using those goals to motivate our team members and keep them motivated along the way. Not only our team members, but also us. We need to stay motivated as well. This is hard work, and it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. We're going to talk about specific project structure, just a reminder of our project management techniques, and then the specialized kind of support that we can give to our project teams. So when we're talking about goals for our project, I want you to think about a time where you ever worked on a team or a committee, or at my organization, we call them impact teams, where we get together to solve a problem and come with a solution. But sometimes we join these committees or teams and they go on and on and on. And we kind of lose sight of why we got together in the first place. Have you ever had that happen? I want you just to jot down a reminder to yourself of a team that you've been on that kind of lost sight of itself. Or perhaps this happened to you. This has happened to me. You've been assigned to a team that has lost its way, and you come in and the work is kind of floundering and people don't even remember why they're gathering. Think about a situation where that has ever happened to you, and I want you just to jot down a little note to yourself, a little reminder of that team experience. One of our most important tasks when working on a project is establishing clear goals for our project. What is the scope of this work? And as administrative professionals, we can play a key part in this. So if you've ever been assigned to a team, you're brought into a team, and that team is floundering, or maybe they're going at a slower pace than they should be, you can help rally that team together and move the work forward in a more productive or efficient manner by just taking a team meeting time, taking a set amount of time, and having people remember what the project goal is. And here's what I recommend. Okay, so do you have your notes ready? I recommend you do this actually for every team you're on. Take a little bit of team time and ask your team members, what is the goal of this project? And just let them say it in their own words. They don't have to pull up the project charter. They don't have to get the definition of their team's purpose or anything like that. Just in their own words, what's the goal of this project? Sometimes you have to rephrase it because we don't call everything a project. So you could ask, what's the goal of our team meetings? What are we hoping to accomplish, or something like that? And have people just say it out loud. Now, when you do this in a team meeting, then I recommend, as the administrative professional, if you can have a flip board, one of those Post-it easels, or if your conference room has a whiteboard, or in today's environment, if you're using Microsoft Teams or other online remote meeting software tools, pull up the whiteboard in your online meeting tool, and just jot down the keywords. You don't have to capture the exact phrases. Now, if it's too intimidating to do that in front of people, you can do it within your meeting notes. You're just looking for, what are the key words? What are the words that stand out to you as they're talking about those project goals? And then as it rotates from person to person, you're looking for, what do people repeat? Or some people will say, yeah, I agree with that, and then they'll move on. They'll take a pass. Someone else will say ditto. Okay, well, what was it about that first person that was important? That'll help to give you a definition of the project goal that you can then take back. And if there is a formal goal statement, or maybe there's a scope statement for your project, you can compare, what do people think versus what was originally written. And that's key. That's key to help getting projects back on track or just moving forward with new momentum. Okay, that takes us to point number 2, getting motivated. this work of redefining or bringing clarity to the project goal is actually a sneaky little way that you're remotivating people for the work that they have ahead of them. You're getting their input, which is actually getting their buy-in. You're asking them, what do you think our project goal is, right? They get to say their opinion. So you're wrapping in that next point of getting people motivated to get back to work. Also, of course, it serves sort of the logical purposes of you're looking for when people have maybe a sidetracked idea or an unclear idea. If they say, I don't know what our project goal is, then you can take the time to bring up the project charter or redefine it as a group. So if you're working on a team that has an unclear project goal, you can spend the next meeting, not at this meeting, but the next meeting then, just taking time as a team to redefine. Or maybe the goal is old or out of date. So let's redefine, freshen up our project goal so that it's applicable to today's work. Now, this is tricky as an administrative professional. We're not the team lead, right? We're not the chair or whatever it is they're going to call the team lead, but we have the ear of that project leader. We're there, or we should be there when agendas are created. If you're not doing that now with the project teams that you support, I highly recommend that you tell your team leader, hey, especially in today's world where things are changing and uncertain and we're all moving to this remote environment, tell your team leads before the next team meeting, can you and I connect to review the agenda? That should happen as a default every time anyway, right? It helps you to take better minutes. It helps you to have better clarity on what's the meeting going to look like. It gives you reassurance about what the expectations are for your work, and your team lead, although I'm just going to be honest, it can be seen as a nuisance, right? Because here's an extra thing I have to do. Now I have to get online to meet with my support so that we can review the agenda, but they'll find reassurance in it because you can flag things ahead of time, any errors or uncertainties, or, right, it'll help those team meetings go better by doing that agenda reporting. Okay, and then just as a fresh reminder, we APs, we know this, but that agenda must be sent out to your project team at least 24 hours in advance, right? So that they get the heads up of what the meeting's about. You don't want to sit people down for a team meeting and say, out of the blue, hey, what do you think our project goal is, right? Give them that heads up on the agenda first. Okay, so let's get back to this point of getting motivated. When you have a clear project goal, you can then measure your progress along the way. When your goal is fuzzy, it's hard to see how is our team advancing. We don't even know sort of what our scope is. And think about the times where people have different goals for a project. I've worked on committees where people definitely had different goals. We all had the same project charter, but people had their own goals for how they saw the outcome, right? And when they don't get to express those differences and come together on a common goal, progress is hard to achieve. Other ways that you might make sure that people are motivated to get the work done is to use incentives and block interference. And I just want to mention at this point that using incentives is tricky. If you can, congratulate people when they've done a good job at a meeting. You know, after a meeting's done, if they asked really good questions, just send them an email or back when we're all together again if you see them in the hallway. Or, accidentally bump into them. Do you ever do that where you know someone's going to be at the coffee stand, so you purposely be there when they're there? And just say, hey, you asked really great questions. Thank you. That little incentive, man, that goes a long way. That goes a long way. If your organization supports things like formal kudos to colleagues, do that for your team members. And keep track of who you've given it to and who has left to receive it. That's going to help you. You don't want to do it in an unfair manner, right? Because sometimes our rock stars are always rock stars and they're always going to get the kudos. Try to distribute that sort of incentive stuff evenly throughout. And that's going to take me to our next point, our final point on this. So I want you to think about a time when you've been on a team where maybe there was one or even a few people who were not helping the cause. Sometimes we have teammates who are assigned to a team and they begrudge the fact that they have to be there, or they don't understand what contribution they bring, or sometimes we just have to work with difficult people. We might start to see them as interference towards the completion of the project, or at least sometimes we feel like they're dead weight we have to carry along. What can we do about that? Because that's just causing extra work, extra heartache, an emotional toll. How can we shift that to block that kind of interference? What I recommend is that you stop and individually analyze each time you feel like someone's interfering with the work of the project. What is it about what they're saying or presenting or doing that feels like it's interference? Make notes for yourself about how are you feeling, what action are they providing that is causing you to feel that way, and then brainstorm ways to sort of turn that around. How can you make what they're presenting into a positive and help them to see the strengths that they bring to the project? Okay, so this is tricky, right? You're like, what? How? Okay, let me give you an example. So last summer, I had to work on a project where one of our teammates was just that kind of difficult person who was always going to think the negative of everything we had to do. She sort of felt like it was her job to remind us of why this work was impossible or why it wasn't going to come to fruition, or all the negative things that came to her mind. She felt obligated to tell us. It was irritating to others. It brought the work down because then we'd have to stop and talk about those points and get back on track again. So it slowed us all down. So what could I do? I was the support to that team. What could I do to help block that kind of interference? Well, I made the list as I recommended to you, and I stopped to think about in what ways, every time I thought of I sort of thought that she was being negative or an interference to our project, I thought to myself, how can I picture that as a strength? So one of the obvious ones at first was she is reminding us of the real possibilities to our work. They were always the negative ones, but they were in fact possibilities. So in that way, she was ensuring that our work was going to be the best that it was going to be, because we had to account for every possible negative consequence. We had to address it, think about it, and have ways to ensure that that wasn't going to happen. And in the end, that is a strength. That is a strength, is that by bringing up those negatives, our work was actually being better. So when she continued to act in that manner and say those things, I started to respond differently. Instead of sort of sighing or letting that negative energy sit there in front of the team, I would thank her for her comments and say things like, thank you for reminding us of the possible consequences. And then there's a couple ways, you guys know what to do, right, as APs with this. We can table those. We can make a list of those. Thank you. I've noted that in the minutes. We'll come back to that when we have more time at a future date. So you could sort of table it. You can address it as the team wants. So as the AP, right, we're taking minutes. So, thank you for that comment. It's going to help to make our work better in the long run. Let's ask the team, should we address that now or should we save that for later? Is it worth addressing? Or do we feel confident that we can move forward without actually worrying about that particular thing, whatever it might be, right? So trying to turn around, give value to her comments, ask whether or not we have to address it, or see if we can table it, and see how it strengthens our work as a whole. And some people might think, oh, that's the wrong approach, Penny, because you're giving her attention, so she's going to do it more. And in truth, she was doing it to get attention, right? She thought that was what she had to do for our team. That was her job, was to remind us of the negative stuff. So she was seeking that attention anyway. I wasn't giving her attention. She was sort of demanding it anyway. I was just recognizing that that's what she was doing. And it did allow her to feel that recognition and slowly turn her attitude. Because after a while, when we would table things, and sometimes people would say, no, I don't think we have to address that concern. I don't think that's a part of our project scope. I don't think we have to worry about it. Or let's wait and see if that comes up again later. Then she began to see that she didn't have to bring up every single negative consequence, that we would listen when we thought it was of value, and that we would honor her contribution to our team. Instead of constantly fishing for attention, she would then save it until she really thought it was of value to the team. It helped block that constant interference, right? She didn't automatically become Polly Sunshine, but it helped to mitigate that interference and really help us move forward in our work instead of walking on little pebbles all of the time. We saved our energy for when we had to get to a big boulder. Okay, let's move on. Those are all the ways that we can help ensure our project goals are clear and that we can help maintain our motivation. Let's talk now. So those are our first two. We've covered how to have what we can do as administrative professionals to help have clear goals and support them, help others get motivated and stay on track with the work. Let's now talk about some project structure ideas, tips and tricks for our actual project structure. Most of us have heard about SMART goals. They're kind of an outdated, old-fashioned approach to identifying goals for the project. When we're talking about the actual project structure, the project management techniques that we have to apply, I recommend the DAPS procedure to outlining our actual project goals. So when you're working on a project and it comes time to identify the goals or revisit the goals, and you need to have it officially done for your project charter, I recommend this method, the DAPS method. It's very similar to SMART goals. If you've done SMART goals in the past, you'll see that it harkens on some of the same themes. Let's go through these one by one. So D is for dated, right? We need to understand whether we're looking at short-term goals or long-term goals. So I'll give you the example of my students. Quite often I ask them, what's your goal? And they'll say, to graduate. Well, okay, is that within the next year, 2 years? Are you looking at a 4-year plan? Is it a short-term goal or is it a long-term goal? Because that will impact then the actions that you take to achieve that goal. So have a date for your project goal. And then understand whether it's short-term or long-term, either within months or more than a year. The A stands for achievable, right? We have to have realistic goals and they have to be within our control. And this is very interesting. Because sometimes organizations will begin projects, if you've ever been on a committee or these sort of organizational wide projects where it's a very large goal that the team needs to complete. I was on a project team once where we wanted to address the issue of our organization was rallying behind the theme of environmentalism, and we wanted to figure out, was there a way that we could reduce the number of single driver vehicles that came to our parking lot, right? People driving by themselves to work, parking and driving home again. Could we reduce the number of vehicles? So that's a very lofty goal. Well, some would say it's not realistic. You can't tell other people not to drive to work, right? It's not within your control whether or not they choose to drive their car. But in fact, it was realistic and it was within our control. We just had to look at the things that were in our control. So reducing, giving a stipend for bus passes, giving monetary rewards for carpooling, establishing bike stations and locker rooms to help incentivize people bringing their bicycles or walking to work. So at the big picture, some people were saying, oh, that's not realistic. You'll never achieve it. We only had to turn our lens and look at what was within our control. Okay, the first P stands for personal. So a thing like reducing the number of single-use vehicles, single-use vehicles to our organization. Like how is that personal to, right? Well, you have to be mindful of the people who care about this sort of thing. they're going to feel a personal connection to the work. It can't always be done, right? Oftentimes our bosses assign us to project teams. That's when I have to stop to find my own personal connection to this work. And I'll be quite honest with you. When I was given the opportunity to join that team, environmentalism wasn't something near and dear to my heart. Of course, I cared about it. I live on this planet, but I didn't have a background in it. I wasn't especially active in any kind of environmental movement. But I could see why this was important, and I could see why my work on this team was important. I made it meaningful and personal to me. Now, how do you help others with that, right? Because some other team members aren't going to know to make it personal. I recommend that you just have a cup of coffee, pull them aside and say, hey, can I meet you? Well, all right, this is when things get back to normal. Can I meet you for a cup of coffee? Let's talk about our project team. What do you like about it? What do you think about it? Do you think it's important? Here's what I see you bring to the table for this team, right? Help them to uncover the personal motivation. Our second P in DAPS stands for positive. Think about what you want instead of what you don't want. And this is for the team as a whole. When you're setting the goal for your team, for your project, make that goal positive, not negative. And again, this is tricky, right? I confess to you, our project goal was to reduce the number of single-use vehicles. Well, that's a negative, right? But the positive is that we're improving the environmental impact of our organization as a whole. We're offering incentives for improving people's health and wellness. We're offering incentives for using the public transportation system within our city. So there were positives that we brought to the table. It's just a little bit trickier than you might think at first. As the AP, we get very good at this because we deal in words all the time, right? We're crafting email messages and communication to the people that we work with. We're proofreading and editing reports. We deal in words all the time. So let your team build their project goal, and maybe you can help wordsmith it to make sure it has that positive connotation. Okay, and the last one then is specific, right? And this one everybody knows. Your goal has to be specific. Why? Otherwise, you get down the road and people get foggy. They forget why they're coming to the meetings. They forget what we're working on. Are we here to increase the number of bus riders? Is that why we're here? Nope. We're here to reduce the number of single-use vehicles. So let's keep moving with that, right? You need to have a specific goal. Otherwise, you get sidetracked by all the related but tangential projects that might come up or ideas that might come up. All right, if you have not been jotting this down in your notepad or typing it in your notes for today's presentation, all you need to write down is DAPS, and you can Google search it. There are excellent resources for working through the DAPS system and helping your team. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of this slide, right? As the administrative professional, again, I'm not the team lead. I can't just walk into the meeting and say, today we're going to work on DAPS. But what I can do is when I'm meeting with that team lead, building that agenda, I can say, hey, you know what? We've been talking about our project goal. It'd be a great idea to revisit the building of our goal with our team. I have an idea. Let's walk through the DAPS system with our team to build or revisit our project goal, right? You can offer up that idea. Your team lead is going to love it because it's going to make him or her look like a rock star, and it's going to help your team be successful. That's why we're here, right? To support the success of teams and our managers and our executives. Do you keep track of your work priorities already? Maybe you have a to-do list or one of the Stephen Covey ideas of tracking what's important versus what's urgent. If you do, that's terrific. Keep going. If you don't, you might want to stop and just review the work that you have currently on your plate to identify the priorities of the work that's pressing. That's the urgent work, and the priorities of the work that's important, right? Those are two different things. Something that might not be important could be due today, or something that is unimportant might be due today, right? Those are two different things. So they get different levels of priority. I would recommend that you walk through that process. Give yourself 10 minutes, look at the projects that you're working on, and identify in order their level of priority. It helps to bring clarity to our work and helps us to understand how our project fits in with all the other work that we have going on. Do both of those things on paper, aligning the goals and aligning the priorities. Make sure that they're realistic again, and then when you're adjusting the priorities, that's the time to look at both short-term and long-term goals that you're working on. Okay, so up next, we want to talk about the value of this work for us as administrative professionals. Why should I do this extra stuff? Why can't I just show up to the team meeting, take minutes, and get out of there, right? I've got a lot of other work on my plate. Well, working on projects diligently and providing this comprehensive level of support creates wonderful opportunities for us and for our careers. You can see some of these opportunities on the slide. We get the chance to practice new skills. And by practicing new skills, we're making ourselves valuable to our organization. In addition, new skills make us valuable as a job candidate. Even if you don't want to stay at the organization you're currently working at, the opportunity to gain new skills makes you a valuable employee, either there or somewhere else. So we also have the opportunity of possibilities. When you're working on projects, you don't always know who among the project members are going to come and go, who's up next for working on a specific area of the project. Maybe the team leadership will change. Maybe project members will interchange. In addition, the people who are on the project, even if they don't change, they know other people. So there's a good possibility that you're expanding your network, getting to know other people or getting to know people you already work with in new ways. Networking is essential for a strong career and for career advancement. It's still true. The old adage is still true. Our career is 80% dependent on networking. All right, the other opportunity I have listed here is timing. So timing is everything. You might not have the chance to practice new skills if your work plate is full as it is. That's okay. Get through this portion. Maybe you can tackle a new skill in the next fiscal quarter or whatever. This is especially true for the time that we're in now, right? We're dealing with a lot of new normal. I don't have to worry about mastering Microsoft Teams. I can know enough to get by and support my project members, and then I'll take training on it later, right? So timing is everything. I already talked to you a little bit about relationships, but as you're working on projects, I would encourage you to actively expand your circle. It doesn't have to be that the people you want to build a relationship actually work on your project. You might look around your organization and look at other teams and other projects that are in action. See who's on that project team that piques your interest, that you think you might learn something from, and talk to that person. Ask for their advice. How is your team doing with their project goals? How is your team doing with moving forward to the achievement of those goals? How is your timeline looking, right? New relations can be built. You can expand your circle just by the experience, right? They don't have to be on your team. You can relate to them by asking mentorship questions, trying to get their advice, relaying your own experience, right? Just bonding in that method. And as I mentioned, by looking at role models, are there other APs who are out there doing great work with their teams? What can you observe from them to help build your own skill set? That's an excellent relationship to build. Okay, those opportunities can be expanded to include many more things. All I ask of you is that you keep your eyes open to the opportunities that project work begins. Okay, so in this section of our presentation, we're talking about the actual project structure. We had to take a little segue there to talk about related things to our project goals, but when we talked about DAPs, that's related to our actual practical project structure. And the next several items that I want to talk about are under the heading of a practical guide to managing projects. So if you've ever taken a course on project management, perhaps you have your project management certification, that's excellent. All of these things are standard project management skills and techniques. This will probably be a refresher for you, but it's a good reminder of how to maintain our project management skills. Okay, for the project that you're working on, and again, it might not be called a project, it might be that you're assigned to a team and this team has to get something done. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at, is that kind of work. Make sure that that team understands their to-do list. It is very, very common that we're assigned to a team or a committee and they do not have a clear picture of the work that must be completed to achieve that goal. Take that time to create a to-do list, and there's a couple of ways you can do this. One way is to sort of sneakily get it in there on your own. Brainstorm, what is the work that needs to be done to achieve that goal? If you're assigned a team or if you're working on a team now, we've already covered the goal, maybe you've revisited the goal. Now's the time to stop and just think to yourself, what are the steps that our team needs to complete to achieve that goal? Write down those steps. Write down that to-do list. What needs to happen? You can then take that brainstorm list, right? You're just brainstorming. You're just gathering ideas. You could take it to your team lead the next time you're going to talk about the agenda or whatever, and have that person review it and say, does this look accurate? I just wanted to get it straight in my mind, how our work might look. 9 times out of 10, they are going to thank you for that list. And they're going to be like, this is great. This brings such clarity to our work. They'll probably adjust it, want to add their own voice to it, put their own spin on it, and then ask to take that list to the team. Have your team members review it. That could actually be a little bit of homework. It doesn't have to be done during the team meeting. Hey guys, take this outside of the team meeting, review it, give me your feedback by Monday, and we'll bring the revised list back to our next team meeting. Having that to-do list ensures that people understand the path towards accomplishing the goals, and it helps when you're working on your timeline to see what have you accomplished and what do you have left to go. That's a great motivator, by the way, right? When people can see what they have accomplished and what they have left to go, you're motivating them to keep going. It especially is helpful, that to-do list, when you have tasks that are slow. You know, sometimes we have tasks that just take a long time on a team. It just takes time to get through all those people bringing their heads together. So when you have that to-do list, it's okay to have that time where you're sort of stuck in the weeds. That's all right. You're reminding, you know the longer path, you know you'll get past this point, and there'll be a time where you get to move ahead and move quicker on other items. Okay, be keeping track of your cost and time. We're going to take a look at an example of a specific project management tool where you're having people track their time. As the AP, generally we're the ones where people are reporting back, right? They're reporting back to our software or our project management tracking sheets the time that they're spending on this project. As the AP, it's up to us to make sure that people are reporting regularly. You don't want to let them delay, right? And they will. It's a human nature kind of thing. Oh, I've got to report my hours for this week. They'll put it off and do it at the end of the month. Don't let them, because it'll generate inaccurate numbers. Send that reminder every Friday. You need to report the hours you've worked on this project for this week, right? Or whatever it is. If it's a bigger project, it's every day. If it's a slower project, maybe it is once a month. But get those numbers and keep track of those numbers. It's a pain, right? It's one of those work items that's kind of a pain in the neck to do, but we do it because it, again, helps with that sense of accomplishment, and it'll help with the next project. When you have accurate numbers on how much time did you actually spend developing the project goal? I mean, it seems that's just one small task of a large project. How much did it take you? A day? Did it take you several days? Did it take people a couple hours on their homework? track that time so the next project, then you know how much time to budget for that step. It'll help you to be more efficient. You'll know when the team is slowing down and you need to sort of help them speed up a little because you've tracked that sort of project for other teams. Give tasks structure. So on your to-do items, it's okay to have great big tasks like create a project goal, but then give it a little structure, right? Underneath that task, maybe write down, you're gonna go through the DAPs, you're gonna brainstorm goal statements, you're gonna brainstorm project scope, right? Give it a little bit of structure as you move forward. Start with that to-do list, that's fine, keep that. But then as you go forward and you're working on these things, give each item a little bit of structure, again, to help you be better at supporting teams in the future. And what it'll do also in the end, it'll set you up to be the rock star that you are. When you do these things for your teams and your projects, other people are going to come back and they're going to ask, wow, how did you achieve such success? How did you get all those people to move forward in such an efficient manner? Well, it's because we paid attention to all of these details. And by the way, this isn't a magic list. This is the standard list of what we do for project management. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, I should be clicking along the way here. That's our estimate time and cost. We talked already about giving task structure. Let's talk about assigning resources. Don't be afraid to assign work to people, right? At the end of every meeting is when we talk about what needs to be done before the next meeting. Sometimes project teams forget to do this and we just leave and we come back to the next meeting. Where were we? What are we going to do this time? Or we rely on our team lead to be worried about what needs to get done. I would encourage you, when you're meeting with your team lead, your project leader, ask to add time at the bottom of the agenda. Put it on the agenda. You can call it assign resources or action items. What needs to be done? Is there a little bit of homework? Do we need people to get work done by the time the next meeting occurs? And then be very clear about that. What's the action item? Who's going to do it? And what's the deadline? Right? Those three things are going to be identified as you assign resources. And our last one is monitor and adjust, right? Before we talk about monitor and adjust, here's my example. This is from the MS Project software, but this kind of managing the project management tool can be anything. There are great project management tools online, and as you look at this, you're probably thinking to yourself, it looks like an Excel spreadsheet. This can be done in Excel easily. The idea is that you're keeping track of this information. You're the AP, you're the support person. You play a unique role. Your role on the team can really make or break a team. Lots of people talk about the project manager as the make or break person, and it's true, they are playing a key role, but your job as the AP giving support to that team is just as equally a make or break position. The level of support that you can give to that team is going to directly influence the success of that team. So that's why it's worth it. So you can see the to-do list over here, right? I have the large heading, and this is just an example. This is not a great example, by the way, but 1, 6, and 12, right? That's my to-do list. And then I gave each one of those a little more structure, right? They have subheadings. We have due dates, approximate duration. Remember, we talked about tracking the time. That allows me to say how much is done, approximately how much is left, right? Because we've said how much time we spent on it, and we also identified how much time we thought it was going to take to get through that thing. So that's the kind of work that you want to do when you are managing your projects. The last thing we're going to talk about is this idea of monitoring and adjusting. Let's stop for just a minute and talk about this last point of project management tips and techniques, and that is the idea that we need to monitor and adjust as the project moves forward. In this step of the process, the AP can play a critical role because everyone is so tuned in to their piece of the project and the tasks that they have to get done that it's often hard for people to see what needs to be adjusted. And no one really is giving that outside global view so that they can help provide recommendations while they monitor the project as it moves forward. So as the AP, we're in a great position where we can sort of take a step back from the project, look at it as an observational piece, and make recommendations. Does someone seem to be attending the team meetings but not fully invested? Is there a team member who's always running late with their work? Is there someone who's super excited about the work and you get the sense that they would be willing to do more? Or maybe they're doing enough work, but their skills would be better served in a different way? As the AP, you get that kind of objective observation of the project, right? Because you're in the team, but you're not so fully invested in one part of the project. You really get to see it all. And because the team lead feels the pressure of being responsible for the team, they often can't take their person out of it and observe from an objective viewpoint. Whereas as the AP, we can, right? It's the leader often feels like they have so much at stake that they can't really be objective in their viewpoint on certain occasions. And the APs, we can do that. So what I would recommend that you do to help your team be as successful as possible and to really make this project succeed is to put on your researcher hat, be the Jane Goodall of your chimpanzees, and you're just going to observe. Think back to the last few meetings. Think about the progress that the project has made, and what are some observational notes? Just notes. They don't have to be a recommendation. They can just be observational notes about, well, this is the sense that I'm getting. This is what I think when I see our team meeting and moving forward. Create for yourself just some observational notes and then keep those notes for a little while over time. That'll help you to start to see themes or recommendations that might bubble up from those observational notes. And that's what you want to then take to your team leader. Your recommendations will help direct any adjustments that could be made for more efficiency, for better performance, for more buy-in, right? Getting that motivation up there. Those little adjustments along the way, right? It's why we have our car tuned up. We don't wait for it to break down. We have it tuned up along the way. And those adjustments can just help keep the motor running, right? They can help that team stay on track. They can help everyone feel good about the work so that it continues to go along swimmingly. We don't want to wait for a breakdown, and we don't want to wait for a time where the team feels bogged down and needs rescuing. You want to make those little fine-tuned adjustments along the way. And as the AP, you're in a great position to do that. Now, if you're keeping your observational notes and you can't really see any recommendations or adjustments needed, that's great. From your observational notes, then say why you don't think things need adjustment. That are people coming prepared to the meetings? Are they turning in their work on time? Do they seem invested in the work and motivated to continue on? Are those the things you're observing? And then maybe add a little more to each one, like why? Why do you think people are motivated and continuing to work efficiently? What is it about your team meetings that make them productive? Just add little whys, and that's what I'd like you to submit to your team lead as just a check-in point, just to say, hey, things are going really well. Kudos to you for running such a great project. Here's what I've observed. These are the things to keep doing because they're working well. So that's all of our monitor and adjustment. And as you can imagine, you're going to do this at regular, consistent points throughout the life of the project. So it really depends on the project that you're working on. But for a typical project, you want to do this once every 3 months if it's a long-term project, right? If it's a shorter project, maybe keep going with it every week or so. All right. Monitor and adjust till the end of the project is there. So let's review all of the things that we've learned about our good project management techniques in the view of supporting our project teams. I mentioned this earlier, But just as a reminder, as the administrative professional, we have a unique role when working with projects and project teams. And so coming at it from our angle is a little bit different. And we don't always hear about this when we take project management training. So I'm going to end our project management section of today's presentation by going over the things that we learned from the angle of the administrative professional. So you can see here on this slide, I start with purpose, and that captures everything that we talked about when we talked about project goals and project purpose. Don't forget, I kind of snuck it in there a little bit a few times, but not only do we have to attend to a clear understanding of the project goal, that every member has the same goal in mind, and that we're constantly seeing our progress towards that goal, but then we're also ensuring that we're not escaping the scope of that goal, because it's so easy to do, right? This happens in our everyday lives, and it happens on every single project that we're going to work on. We have a goal, but then we think, oh, but I could just do this too, or that we could just expand it to include this. You know, we have to always be mindful of keeping our scope tight so that we're not distracted or sidetracked by all of the related projects that come along. Okay, so all of that fits under the heading of purpose. What is our purpose as a project team? Because for us, our project won't be successful unless our team is successful. So as the AP, we have to do all the things that we're used to in supporting projects, all of the creating documents, filing, keeping up reports, minutes, agendas, things like that. Like, we're used to that project management stuff, but we also have to be mindful of that work as it supports our project team as well. Okay, speaking of agendas, so if you have not already, every team meeting should be defined by an agenda. And we're in a very kind of strange time with agendas. I don't know if you've felt or heard the buzz about this. I've talked to a few APs who organization-wide, their administrators have decided that we don't need agendas. It stifles free thinking and brainstorming, so we should go to our meetings without agendas. And I'm here to tell you that that's fine, but not on a project, not when you're working on a project where we need to constantly be efficient, productive, and moving forward. And the best tool you have for that is your agenda. Your agenda gives people a heads up so they know what is expected of them at the next meeting. It gives the meeting leader chunks of time so that they're not going on and on about a certain point that's important to them but not important to others, right? That agenda is crucial. And so just a couple quick reminders. I know you already know this, but it's good to be reminded. Agendas go out a minimum of 24 hours in advance of the meeting because you need your people. One of the things the agenda does? It helps them prepare for the meeting. So if you haven't lately, you should also, so send it out 24 hours in advance. You should also remind your team members, and this includes your team lead, right? They're human too. They're going to forget that it's the expectation that they'll review the agenda before they come to the meeting. So just remind them, hey, everybody, before our Wednesday meeting, the agenda will be sent Tuesday at noon. Don't forget to take a look at it before you come to the meeting. And that takes time to get people used. If they haven't been doing that, right, don't expect them to be perfect the next week. It'll take time, so it'll take constant reminders for a little while to get them back into that rhythm of reviewing that agenda before they come. Also on your agenda, leave time at the end, leave a little buffer of time at the end of the agenda so people can ask questions for the next agenda or provide items that they think should be added to the next agenda, right? Now that we're going to use our agenda as a tool for helping our team be successful, let people contribute to that agenda. And as always, like we do regularly at the beginning, people will approve either officially or unofficially. Ask people, do you have any, unofficially you can do it this way. You can just ask people, did you look at the agenda before you arrived today? Give the agenda a quick look. Do you see any corrections or changes that need to be made? Then the meeting can begin. If you're in a more formalized organization, right, you would have the team review the agenda and give their formal approval at the beginning of the meeting. And then the other thing I was talking about is at the end of the meeting for the next time. let people, does anybody have anything they think we should add to the agenda for next time? Let them have that input. It also gains their buy-in because then they're a part of the planning and the action. Okay, so don't forget that to use your members, leverage your members. They are the ones who are going to make this project successful. So you need to leverage their talents, right? What are their strengths? You need to decrease their interruptions, block their interference, and then wherever possible, tend to their human nature as well. Ask people for a cup of coffee. Run into them in the hallway, right? If you know that someone has a 12 o'clock meeting, be in the hallway when it gets out at 1 and just walk with them and, hey, how's it going, right? Don't forget that they're human too, and connect with them on that human level, that if they're going through a rough time at home or if they're stressed out about other things at work, you can be mindful of that. We can still treat them as humans and help them succeed on our projects as well. Under the category of timing, that's all of the things that we do to help make sure that activities get done, that we're moving forward, that the work continues to grow, that we see that path, we see where we've come to and where we're going, and that includes things like estimating the amount of time it should take us to do a certain activity. And did we reach that estimate? Did we go over it or under it? So we're always being mindful of our time, which bleeds into the tracking of the progress and milestones. When your team meets any kind of significant milestone, you want to be able to recognize that. So even if you have to sort of fake it for a little while, we're just coming out of spring and entering summer. So maybe now is the great time to have a end of spring celebration for the team. What did we accomplish over the winter and spring months as we enter our summer months? Right, that we have the chance to recognize milestones so that we can come together as a team. It's a great bonding activity. And it also, again, helps people to see what they've accomplished, to get them motivated for the time ahead. Now, the last one's hidden a little bit, but there we have it, our team support. Again, a reminder that as the AP, we're there to provide that professional support. This is what we do. We support others, and that includes supporting project members and supporting teams. This is what we're good at, both professionally and whenever you can, give it that personal touch as well. All of this work, these are the little details of our AP career that help to make us shine as the administrative professionals that we are. So sneak in little times when you can tend to these things. It doesn't have to encompass your whole day. 5 minutes at the end of the day to connect with someone, or send somebody a little note saying, hey, thanks for a great job at the last team meeting, or 5 minutes on a Friday just to make sure your agenda's in a good place where it's ready to be mailed out the next week, or whatever it is. Sneak in these little things to give your team quality administrative professional support. Do you follow any online resources from administrative professional career sources? IAAP has great resources online on Facebook and on Twitter, but there are lots of great resources as well. The one that I'm showing you here is from Office Team. I find their work very professional and great advice, frankly. So I selected one of their articles to share with you regarding project management because I thought it also spoke to this idea of the unique role that we play as administrative professionals. And that's in terms of accountability. We are often the point of accountability for our project teams, our office, within the suite of managers that we support. Whenever there's something that someone needs clarified, or maybe something went wrong, we're the ones to track it down, to figure it out, to correct it, right? We're the point of accountability. So from that, knowing that reality, that part of our jobs, how does this affect us when we're supporting projects or project teams? Well, the Office Team resource reminds us that we have to make deadlines our first priority. In the work that we do, that we're required to do for supporting projects, it is those deadlines that we have to meet. So if a project needs to have its scope or goal statement done by June 1st, then that's going to drive the rest of our work. We have to meet those deadlines. We have to make them the priority. I've given you lots of other things to think about. They are great things to do. I don't want to see them fade away or forgotten about, but quite honestly, deadlines have to be our first priority. The second piece of advice that they give us is to always close the circle. And as the AP, this falls to us more than anyone else. Have you ever done this? Can you think of a time where you didn't have the work to do, somebody else had to do it, you sent them an email that said, hey, I need X information by noon on Wednesday, and you sent out that email, right? Your part of the bargain is done. You've reminded that person of the work they had to do. You gave them a deadline. Closing the circle, that means Wednesday at 5, if you haven't received anything, that you're just going to send a little reminder. Hey, I was hoping to receive this information by noon. I haven't gotten it in my inbox yet. Can you let me know if you're still working on it, or if you have it ready, send to me, something like that. Some APs will take it a step further and they'll send a friendly little reminder on Tuesday. Hey, don't forget, this work is really important. It's key for other things to move forward. We have a deadline of noon tomorrow. If you're unable to make that deadline, let me know now. Otherwise, I'll expect to see it by then. Thanks for all your hard work, so on and so forth. So closing the circle, it's that even though we're not, we often hear this phrase, I'm not your mom, right? I shouldn't have to remind you to meet your own deadlines. That is our job, actually. That is what we do, is support others so that they can succeed. And then you get to pick whether that's sending a reminder ahead of time, following up afterwards, and then even after somebody has sent their submission, checking to make sure that it's the right kind of information that was needed before sending it forward to the other players in the game. Okay, the chain of accountability is meant to remind us that every link in the chain serves an important role, and that's us as well. That we should never think of ourselves, oh, I'm just the administrative assistant. Oh, I'm just the office aide. I can't really say anything. I can't really step up any further. I'm just down here, right? I'm not an executive. I'm not a manager. I'm not the leader of the project. I can't move beyond my bounds. And their advice is, if that's the role that you play, then play that role using all of your resources, doing the best possible work that you can do, that even that link in the chain is critical. Because if any link breaks, right, our chain is broken. So we want to use our position and our link in the chain as best as possible to help this team succeed. And then finally, the buck stops here, right? When it's the whole, this is it for accountability, right? When the ball gets dropped, when something goes wrong, we're not going to look to blame others. We're not going to start to rationalize why it happened. We're not going to provide excuses. We're going to fix it. That's us. We're the APs. We solve problems. We support others. The buck stops here. So if a deadline was missed, that's all right. I'm on it. I'll get that information and I'll get it submitted. If it's reliant on others, I'll remind the other person. I'll convey the importance of that information, right? The buck can stop with me. I can take on that responsibility and get the job moving forward. And then the last one is polish up. As administrative professionals, that's why you're here today, right? We're polishing up our skills. No one's making us do this. We do this because we want to be the best that we can be at our jobs. So this last one of polish up, I always chuckle a little because that's why we're here. That's why we're an IAAP member. That's why we're an AP. That's what we do, is we polish up, constantly keeping our skills, our knowledge, our use of technology at the forefront, always keeping it the best that it can be. Okay, I want to provide you one last slide regarding project management because I just love this quote. The last step of every project is to properly document it. And when we live in a world of multiple demands from multiple managers on multiple projects, it is hard to document everything, but do it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be documented. So if you're keeping little Post-it notes because you don't have time to formally type out things, that's okay. Throw those Post-it notes, date it, throw it on a piece of paper, put it in a file folder. Keep track of that stuff. Just document it. Someday down the road, when you have time, you can type it up in an orderly spreadsheet so it looks like, a terrific great work or whatever. But the idea is that you have to document it, because otherwise, look at what Frank tells us, because if by neglecting it, you subject yourself to the cumulative anxiety of partially finished things, right? It's why we wake up at night. We think, oh my God, did I remember to, right? Did we take care of that? I don't have to wake up at night with those questions because I've documented it along the way. Did I remember to reach out to this person? Did I remember to follow up with that person? It's all documented. I don't have to worry about it. Now, if you're not a post-it notes kind of person, hopefully you've sort of advanced into project management software or tools like Slack that help us keep up to date with our teams. We can keep our little notes in there. Even Outlook, right? We have our task list, our to-dos. We can use our flags, our categories, our color coding to do all that kind of documentation. Whatever system you use that lets you be efficient and on top of it, do it. It's just the fact that you're documenting it. And I really would encourage you that every so often, for example, every 3 months, no more than that, that you do take all those little notes and you put them together in one full set so that your documentation along the way, you can see that progress over time. Now, there are times where I'm a paper girl and there's a time where I'm a computer girl. Most often, I'm on my devices. I'm using my tools. Excuse me. I'm using my technology to its advantage. But sometimes I get sick of being on the computer, and so I'll just designate, like, this is the project. I'm just going to be paper and pencil, because I just need a little time away from my computer. And so those are the things that later then I have to type up and translate and put into the computer and put into a document. So just be careful that that's a little more time consuming, but it still is it's a system of documentation that works. So use what works for you, use what's best for you, but document, document, document. Now it's time to turn our angle. Up until now, we've been talking about managing our work via project management techniques. Now we're going to talk about organizing our work, and I've divided this up into several subcategories. Our first subcategory is the space around us, the space in which we work. So because of our changing times, I'm going to talk a little bit about ergonomics for our remote workplaces. A lot of us are working from home these days. We might be working from other places. I don't know about you, but I'm at home with my 2 children who are schooling from home. We're on a stay-at-home order from our governor. And occasionally I need to get work done without all of the distractions of being at home with everybody else, the cat and the dog and the laundry. So I even have taken to driving to my local library and just sitting in the parking lot and using their Wi-Fi. It's peaceful, it's quiet, but I need to be mindful if I'm going to stay there of the ergonomics of that space as well, right? And it seems funny, like, what, you're working in your car, how can you be ergonomic? But there's lots of things that we can keep in mind, whether we're working inside in our home offices, whether we're on our back porch working outside in the open air. Let's always think about the ergonomics of our workspace so that we can maintain our health and wellness. Okay, so first things first, when we talk about ergonomics, it's not always about comfort and just the physicality of our workstation. It also includes setting up a space that allows maximum efficiency and safety. So it's comfortable to sit on the couch with our laptop, but it's not always safe, as the laptop would overheat because it's sitting on our legs or on a pillow, right? That's not a safe place for your laptop to be. So always think about, you can start with this, think about, is the space in which you're working, does it provide you maximum efficiency and safety? Is your chair sturdy? Do you feel safe? Are things secure and well balanced? Then, are your frequently used items near you? And in today's world, that would be your phone, your wireless mouse, your monitor. Do you use other things? As I mentioned earlier, I sometimes convert to paper and pencil. So I do have pads of paper near me, pencils, post-it notes, because I do like to mix it up every once in a while. So I have those frequently used items near and around me. Okay, so that's our first lens, because those points are easy to adjust. Now, how might you get into the more of the details? One of the widely and very popular ideas at play in here is this idea of the ready to go principle. So that when I come to my workstation in the morning, I'm ready to go. I have everything is ready to go for me at the space in which I work. So I'm avoiding clutter. When I'm not working in my car at the local library, I am most often sitting at my dining room table. I don't have an office. Some people have an office space in their home. I don't have the luxury of a separate room for an office. So I sit at my dining room table. And I don't know about your dining room table, but if it's anything like mine, it's where everybody puts everything. So the kids' homework, my husband sets his tools down there. The cat treats are on the dining room table. And it's very hard to get to work and not be distracted by that clutter, right? So now that we're working from home and schooling from home, I've declared the dining room table a clean space. You have to put things away. They don't belong on the dining room table, right? When the kids are in charge of folding their laundry, they have to take it to their room now. They don't get to use the dining room table. It's clutter free. And then my workstation is set up there and stays there at that one spot on the dining room table so that I am ready to go in the morning. I can sit down and I'm ready to go. Everything is within easy reach, including paper and pencils, as I mentioned before. I am tossing any unneeded or outdated items. Now, this one's really more for our workstations at work. If you're still able to go into your regular office space, it is easy for things to pile up. Mail, project ideas, things that we get from others, references, books, magazine articles, and we think, oh, I'll get to that later, and it gets stacked up. Go through it, toss, remove it so that it's not a distraction to you. You want your workspace to be clean and efficient so that you can be your most productive, most efficient self. Okay, what else should we be mindful of? Well, when we're talking ergonomics, there are lots of concerns at play, so let's get right down to it. Computer vision syndrome is right now, it's our biggest concern for everybody because when we're not on our work devices, we're on our personal devices. And so we have to be very mindful. So here's what I want you to do. Among all the other things you're going to pay attention to, every 10 minutes, and I mean it, every 10 minutes, you're going to look away from your screen. And this is very important when you're working at home. When we're working at the office, we always have lots of distractions around us, right? Somebody stops at my cubicle, or I need to go load paper into the printer, or I'm just going to get up and get myself a cup of coffee, right? I get those natural distractions. When I'm working at home, I'm hunkered down at my dining room table, I'm getting work done, and I'm finding myself 8 hours a day at my computer. And that's terrible for your vision. If I'm not at my computer, I'm on my phone or I'm on my tablet, right? So every 10 minutes, and this is not a hard one, you're just going to look away. If you have the luxury of being near a window, look out that window. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to look purposefully at color in nature. When you're on your devices, the color is being pushed to your eye. When you're looking at the color in nature, your eye is absorbing that color. It's a subtle difference, but it's a difference that your eyes need. If you don't have the luxury of working near a window, bring in a little color from nature. Bring in some plants, buy some flowers. Bring in just a variety of color as best you can. If you can reposition yourself near a window, do it so that you can look outside. If you have the luxury of getting up and walking to a window, that's even better, right? A little movement. We'll talk about that in a minute. Along with computer vision syndrome going left to right, we have the comfort, efficiency, and safety that I talked about earlier. Let's get into it now. Is your chair an ergonomically designed chair? So at work, I have a Herman Miller chair. Love it. Can't recommend it highly enough. It is ergonomically designed. Like, that's their whole selling point. It's an expensive but awesome chair. Where am I at home? I'm on a dining room chair. It's not the right height. It's not the proper length for my feet. It's not ergonomically designed for me, and I can't adjust it, right? It's a dining room chair. So what's a person to do? You can make adjustments even without our fancy chairs. Put pillows down if you need to raise the height of your dining room chair. Often dining room chairs are much lower to the table than our work chairs are to our desks. So you can sit on some pillows. Try to find that nice balance where your feet can rest flat, that they're not tippy-toed nor the chair is too low, but that's that right sitting point, and that your arms can rest so that your elbow rest is parallel once it's on the table. Okay, so you have a nice supportive chair. It has to be safety. You don't want it to be wobbly, but then play with little tricks to it. If it's too high, is there a different chair in your household? Folding chairs. If you have a folding chair, don't be afraid to go look at that folding chair, and then because they're generally a little bit lower, can you raise it up by sitting on some pillows? Do you need to put some pillows behind your back because the chair is too deep, or is it too shallow? And the other thing I want to talk about here under comfort, safety, and efficiency is when it comes to your physical sitting spot, give yourself variety. Don't think that you have to be stuck if you have a home office, don't think you have to be stuck at that desk. You can go work on the couch. Earlier I was talking about sitting on the couch or sitting in a recliner and getting some work done. If you have a laptop, go do it just to give your body a little bit of variety, but only stay there for like 30 minutes, right? Because couches and recliners, the seating position is really too far back, and that'll affect your back and your neck. So just do it for a little while, or better yet, go sit on a bench outside. Go sit if you have a lawn chair that doesn't put you in an uncomfortable position. Go use that for a little while. Use a stool at a kitchen counter for a little while, just to give yourself variety. And have you seen this neat little trend on Facebook and other places, right? Your new standing desk can be your ironing board if you have it, right? Or you can use your kitchen counter and you can prop up your laptop a little bit to have a standing workstation, right? If you have a wireless keyboard that you can take with you or a wireless mouse. All right, our third one in the lower corner here is our repetitive strain injury. So this is our fingers, our hands, and our wrists. So now that you've gotten your chair to the right position, you have to think about how your arms rest and your wrists rest to the keyboard. You don't want your wrists up and you don't want your wrists down. You want them sort of parallel and at a slight angle to hit the keys properly. If you're a touch typist, that's better because you've already trained your arms to be held up a little bit. So you want to be very careful. And again, here, the trick is going to be variety. So some of us who were put on work from home orders, we grabbed our laptops and we headed out. We didn't have anything else. And so typing on a small laptop keyboard is going to give your hands and your fingers more stress than if you have an actual full-size keyboard. So now's the time to ask your employer. If you're only working on your laptop, ask your employer for a full-size keyboard. And again, that'll give it the variety. You can sometimes sit outside and use your laptop and then go back to your full-size keyboard. If you only have your trackpad on your laptop, request from your employer a mouse. It's a cheap little purchase that's going to give your wrist and your hand the variety that it needs. Using your trackpad is going to put more strain on your fingers and your hands. Okay, and then finally is our technology addiction reminder that because we're on our devices more than ever, right? We're at a quarantine stage in where I live, and so I don't get to go see my friends. I don't get to go see my family. So how do I connect with them? I connect with them on Zoom, and I do FaceTime, and I use chat and Facebook and Instagram. So I'm on my devices all the time, and I have to be mindful to get off. Because I'm socially connecting, I feel like, oh, I need that. I need to connect with my sisters and my girlfriends, but I need time away from my technology. So going for a walk by myself, no music, no phone with you, going for a walk, digesting, disconnecting from technology, not even television, not Netflix, none of it, disconnecting from technology a little bit every day, so that we're mindful that we're not giving our bodies overload to the technology. So those economic concerns, there's 4 of them on this slide that I really want you to be mindful of if you are already work from home or if you are transitioning to a work from home situation. Okay, one more slide here under your space, your work. So we had the first slide, if you remember, the ready to go principle, and then we had the second slide, how to be healthy in our workspace. Now's the time to marry those two things. How do I find efficient workspaces that are also have an efficient arrangement? So you just sort of take a survey of your house. Don't limit, I already talked about that hot new trend working on your ironing board. You can work anywhere that you hit your Wi-Fi signal, right? You could stand at your washing machine and work there, have that as your standing desk. You could prop up a folding table and use that, or a TV tray and use that. Do you have a sewing desk? Do you have a dresser? Think outside the box. Think about where can you work so that you can have multiple locations that are ready to go, that allow you to sit down and get to work. That all you need to do is bring your laptop, maybe plug into a docking station, or bring your wireless keyboard with you, and you can shake it up. You can move it around, test your boundaries, try something new today. For a short while, I have a walk-in closet with my husband, and that was the quietest place in the house. And for a short while, I was sitting in there and working because it was so nice and quiet. Well, it did end up driving me a little bit batty because there's no windows, right? And it's a small space full of clothes. But I tried it, right? The point is that I tried it. Try to find those different spaces. And I know that if I have a last-minute meeting, Zoom meeting, I can go to that closet. I can sit down. I know what to do. I know the chair to pull in to sit down and get to work. I know how to create that efficient arrangement. Use your intuition. If it feels like a good space for getting work done, then that's great. Be mindful of your ergonomics and move forward. And always keep in mind to keep it clean and orderly. We're in strange and unusual times, so we're going to make do. But honestly, having a clean and orderly workspace will help you to feel more in control and less distracted. So here we are, mastering our workspaces, paying attention to our health and wellness. How else can we move forward with workload mastery? Well, in this section, I'd like to talk to you about the kinds of tools that we can apply when dealing with our time and our workload. So one of the things that I love about being an administrative professional is that we have a natural affinity towards organization. I see that in all of the APs that I work with, and the APs who are really good at what they do are always mindful of their workload organization. For us in today's world, we're not only organizing files and tasks and projects, we're organizing emails and meetings and project management tools online. We're doing this all with new technology and new apps. And it's in this workload mastery where we can really shine, because at its core are all of our organizational principles, the things that we're already good at. So for example, when you're organizing your email, if you're not already using a system of flagging those messages, you should be. And here's a common system that lots of people use. Flag items that deserve immediate attention. In Outlook, you can use you can right click and apply a flag, perhaps a red flag for those things that need immediate attention, yellow for those intermediate ones, they could wait a day or two, and orange for things that someday need to get done but don't need your immediate attention right this very minute. Or another system that people use is creating folders within their bigger Outlook account. So one folder could be called Due Today, things that need your immediate attention. Another folder might be called Things that are due this week. And then you file, as things come in, you just file them where they need to be. Another folder might be called things that need to be done this month. So you have today, this week, or this month, or some combination thereof. What you're doing is you're putting things in categories so that you're not just sort of trying to truck through your inbox, right? It becomes overwhelming when you just try to keep up with messages. You get distracted by things that people make requests of, but maybe they're not so important, right? Somebody sends you an email that more paper is needed for the copier. Well, that's great, but there's 2 more boxes right there, so you know that'll last another week or 2, and you'll put the order in. It can happen later, right? You don't have to attend to it right now. So by using a system of organization, you're attending to things when they need it. The other thing that this helps with is make sure that things don't fall through the cracks. Have you ever done this where you've gotten an email and you thought to yourself, well, okay, I can do that on Wednesday or Friday. I don't have to do it today. But then you forget about it, right? I'll confess, I've been guilty of this. Not often, but every once in a while. And I'll even reply back, oh, sure, I'll take care of that on Friday. And then I completely forget about it. As my inbox fills up, it's at the bottom of that list. And I often try to get to the bottom of my email, but not on a daily basis. I can't empty my inbox on a daily basis, try as hard as I might. So having a system of organization means that my inbox isn't going to be that full. I'm only going to attend to the things that need that day, and I'm not going to let the others fall through the crack, because then things that need to get done that week, I'm coming back to check on those as I've cleaned up what needs to be done today. So when we're mastering our workload, let's take a look at some tools that might help us. I've already mentioned a few of them: Trello, Slack, as we go along, Microsoft Teams, if you're not already using those. Take a minute and do a little Google search for online planners and see what you can find. You want to look at what other people are using, and specifically, I would encourage you to reach out to your IAAP colleagues. What are they using for their online planners versus an online calendar? Lots of tools have both combined, but does that work best for you? You might want to have 2 separate apps. It's really what works best for you. So do also a Google search for online calendar. Again, ask your IAAP colleagues, what are they using? Go out and research some websites, see what other people are saying about the tools. Be sure to look for in either both, or if you use a combined one, what sort of system of alerts and reminders do they use? Can you sync your laptop with your phone? Does it allow for that? And do they allow you to customize the notifications here under alerts and reminders? That might be important to you, that customization, not sort of just a default setting, but can I customize what gets notified and when it gets notified? So I'm going to throw some up on the screen for you to take a look at. And while I do this, I just want to remind you that picking any kind of app or tool or resource or technology is like picking a house to buy or a car to drive. You really have to pick the one that you like. There are going to be ones that your organization endorses, and of course we have to go with those. But sometimes we also have a little bit of leeway, especially as administrative professionals, because we're on the front lines when it comes to technology. We need to use up-to-date technology tools that allow us to get our work done in a really efficient manner. So sometimes our bosses are willing to let us have a little leeway and play with new technology, play with new apps, play with new devices. So you can take a look at these, download them, play around with them, use them, see what they're like, and try another one and compare it and sort of make your pro-con list. So there are some, I'm going to do one more. This last one are the new kinds of customizations that are allowed in our Microsoft Office tools. If you're not already using Microsoft Office 2019 or 365, right, they're sort of the same thing nowadays, take a look and see what are the new features in Office. And you can do a Google for new features in Office, or new features for planning, new features for calendaring, new features for online tools in Microsoft Office. There's just an abundance of information, right? That's one thing Microsoft is really great at, is putting information out there about what tools they have available and how to use them. So all of the things that we've been talking about in this section really speak to our ability. We're managing and organizing our workload as a means to be better at using our time. So let's dive in now specifically to time management techniques. And I hit on this a little bit earlier. If you are working at home these days or working remotely, you need to be more mindful of procrastination than ever. I'm working at home, if you're working at home, now we have things like our laundry that goes off, my phone goes off, and I need to attend to that. The kids might call from upstairs, they need help with their homework, right? I have many more distractions now than I've ever had before. So right, when the kids call for help, it's okay for me to put pause on work and go help them. I don't have to say, no, don't bother me, I'm working. But what I need to be mindful of is the amount of time that I help them, and that I need to come back to work, right? I need to come back and get back to it. So setting up a few boundaries. For example, I've let my kids know that I'm not their frontline resource for help, that they can do other things like do a little Google research, see what you can find out, email your instructor, email your regular teacher, see if they can help you, see if they have resources out there in their Google Classroom. You can also, my daughter's a little bit older, she can text her friends, did you have this problem? What did you do to help figure this out? I'm a line of help for my kids, but I'm not their first, right? So I set up a little bit of structure so that I can be mindful of my own time at work, and then avoiding the other kinds of procrastination, so that I've clearly separated out, well, I'll do laundry at night, not during the day. So in that vein, I am prioritizing my work tasks above other tasks. I'm allowing myself breaks to get other things done because I am working at home, right? I don't have to be chained to my computer. I can do other things, but the priority is on my work tasks. And then I'm always mindful of my time management, that I'm not spending hours and hours and hours on one thing, that I'm allowing myself to break it up, get that variety, switch it up once in a while, and still be efficient with my time, that I'm always mindful of the techniques I have for being efficient with my time. What are some more time management techniques? Well, I'd really encourage you to leverage your technology to help you manage your time. So if you have any repetitive tasks, usually as APs, there are some things that we do over and over and over again. Earlier, I talked to you about the importance of agendas. Well, in my organization, agendas look a certain way. So I have to set them up with a certain date, a certain time, a certain footer. I have to put in the membership. So I'm going to look at ways, if I have to do that same thing over and over again, how can I now streamline that repetitive tasks? Well, the first one I'm going to talk to you about is the use of macros, so that if you have a footer that needs to be put into your documents, create a macro so that every time it just pops in that footer. Maybe your footer constantly requires the page number and then the date, or maybe it's the file path, that you have a macro that gets that work done. Maybe in your footer, you always have created by Penny Johnson, or edited by Penny Johnson, or revised by. That phrase can be typed out by a macro, right? So I'm using macros to streamline those repetitive tasks. Back to this idea of my agendas always kind of have to contain the same information. I use templates wherever possible so that my agenda template has a calendar in it. So all I have to do is select the date. It already has the time because we meet at the same time every week. That it already has my membership already sitting in there, so that all I have to do is strike through absentee members, right? So I'm setting up templates, and then I have a clean template for that ready to go. Templates are a great time saver, and most of us use them already, but I want you to think about how can you use templates even more efficiently. Okay, and then don't forget the use of your online groups. Are there things that you can do as an Outlook group to save you time? Instead of recreating a calendar appointment with the same group of people all the time, if you create an Outlook group, you can just create an appointment for that group right away. Or perhaps it's a Microsoft team that you can then you don't have to pop everybody's email in to set up that calendar appointment. You could just use those online groups. SharePoint is another terrific way, so that instead of sending out an invitation, all you're doing is reminding people to go to SharePoint and look at the agenda before the meeting on Wednesday or whenever it is. So leveraging your technology to help you master your time. That's what we're talking about in this section. So there are a few other time wasters. We've already talked about procrastination. Interruptions are a big one. And the way to handle interruptions is to put structure around when that interruption happens, whatever it may be. My husband comes home from work. He works an odd schedule where he's done at 1:30 in the afternoon, and he comes home and he's done with work. So he wants to talk and tell me about his day, which is great. I want him to, right? And I'm going to spend time with him. So it's an interruption that I welcome, and that's when I schedule my lunch. I take a little bit later lunch break so that I can be ready for him when he comes home. But then I have to put structure around that. After about 20 minutes is when I start reminding him that, I got to get back to work. I'll catch up with you when my work day is done, right? I have to put structure around that interruption. If there are people who are constantly pulling at your time, think about ways in which you can make them self-sufficient, right? It's the old adage, teach a person to fish for themselves. Wait, how does that go? Now I can't remember. Don't hand them a fish, teach them how to go fishing or something like that, right? That when they're pulling on your time, if you have people who are constantly asking questions, how do I do this? How do I do that? Give them the tools so that they can be the fisher person themselves, right? And that can be creating how-to handouts, resources, finding online tutorials for them so that they can be fulfilled in doing it themselves. And part of what you're doing there is you're giving them the tools to succeed. Remember, you're not trying to offload your work. You're not trying to push them away. You're trying to help them be a master of this sort of new normal that we're in. Anytime you have unfocused work, you have to be very careful, because there are times where we're given work that comes to us without a lot of clarity. And you want to be able to, right from the get-go, set up structure to help you understand where that work is going and what boundaries need to be made for that work. So in the final segment of today's presentation, let's talk about what all of this means for our careers and our work. We're administrative professionals. Managing and organizing our work is something that is critical to our roles. But as our workplaces evolve and change, what does that mean for the heavy-duty changes we're experiencing right now? And for the long-term career path, we have seen our careers evolve over the years, and they will continue to evolve in the years ahead. So what do we need to keep in mind for the important administrative professional trends? Well, I'd like to share this first idea with you from Office Dynamics, another great online resource for administrative professionals. They remind us that technology is prevalent now more than ever, and this was issued before the stay-at-home orders were put in place. And we've seen it over the years. Technology has changed us. Think about the last few years, about how we used to plan travel for our executives. It is not what it was, right? I now have an app that I can use for my entire executive's itinerary, planning everything from transportation, the airplane ride, the hotel bookings, all of it within one app. It includes the map, the timeline, the directions. So even that one task has been totally transformed by technology. Administrative professionals, I can remember when I began my career, administrative professionals did not have to use technology. It was sort of tangential. We were valued for the knowledge and the expertise that we kept inside. And now, one of the things that we're greatly valued for is for our ability to leverage technology that will help us to be more proficient and efficient. So let's take a look at some of the technology trends that are with us in our careers and that are being applied in these new trends. So we know the need for our technology skills will grow. If there's one thing that's true about technology, it never stays the same. Today's Microsoft Teams will be replaced by something else, and that's okay. It's not our job to be an expert at a specific kind of technology. It's our job to be able to adapt technology to our needs. So whether it's Zoom or WebEx or GoToMeeting, remember when GoToMeeting was it was the way to do video conferencing? Now nobody uses, well, it's not the most popular application. And then a couple of other quotes here. 43% expect proficiency in mobile media. That's on our horizon, that what we have traditionally done on our laptops, we're now doing on our phones. that you may have to support executives or colleagues to attend their remote meetings, not on their laptops, but perhaps on their tablets or their phones. That mobile technology is huge. And we see that all over our workplaces, that all of the technologies that we're using in the cloud, we're now adapting to be able to use on our phone as well. Another statistic here, 33% of employees will be able to be proficient in the cloud in 3 years. And these statistics, again, were published before the pandemic. So I expect these numbers, and I'm not exaggerating, to at least double. Think of all of the work that you do in the cloud, either a Google Drive or a OneDrive or a SharePoint or something like that, right? Our organizations are now dependent on our cloud services. And so there's no need to go back. We're only going to go forward. And again, as administrative professionals, we're not required to be the expert in SharePoint. What we need to do is understand how are we using the cloud to help us be productive and efficient, right? Doesn't matter if it's Google Drive or SharePoint or whatever. We'll learn the technology, that we're good at that. We'll learn the tool and we'll be able to use it. But the way that we shine is by being able to say, hey, whether it's this technology or that, I know how to leverage that technology to help me be better at my job and to help support others to shine in their jobs. Okay, this other administrative professional trend is the one I'd like you to leave with today. I'm sure you've heard this before. It's a very popular topic in our field. And that's the idea that we're not a support worker like we used to be, right? I used to be the person who was in charge of my executive's calendar. I had to place appointments on there. I had to set up meetings and schedules, and I was in control of the calendar. Nowadays, that's not true. My executive is very proficient at his calendar. He can schedule appointments and set up times and know what's on the horizon. Rather, I'm his administrative partner. So what I can do is leverage my time and talent and the technology so that we're sharing that calendar. So when I need to book meetings with other people for my executive, I know maybe who takes priority and whose calendar could be adjusted. I know who is essential to be at that meeting and maybe who's optional, right? So we're sort of coming full circle of using the technology, being valued for our knowledge, all in combination, that we really are now starting to see ourselves and working in a manner that shows we're an administrative partner to our executives and to the people that we support, our colleagues and so forth. And this goes back to this whole idea of how we worked in our project teams as well, right? I wasn't just the support for that project. I was really working in such a way that I was a partner to that team, to sort of twist the phrase a little bit there. I was working in partnership with them to help everyone succeed. So with those trends in mind, let's move forward and remember that we need to maintain a sense of work-life balance. We see this all over the place now with the pandemic, that we're trying to remember that it's not all about work and it's not all about ignoring work, right? That we're really trying to find this new kind of balance because the line is so fuzzy. I'm working at home. Lots of people are working at home. Lots of people are working remotely. How do we find this new sense of balance when I don't have a physical difference between work and home? It's all in the same place now. The number one thing to do is take care of yourself. So pay attention to your body, your mind. Honor what you're feeling. We have to get work done, right? We've spent an hour talking about projects and deadlines and priorities. We need to maintain our careers, but we also need to pay attention to ourselves. And some of the ergonomic advice that we shared earlier will be helpful, but also just being mindful of what brings you joy, what brings you peace, what can you do to help take care of yourself, eating healthy, taking time outs, doing meditation, whatever those things are. I talked a little bit earlier about setting boundaries around your relationships to help you define your workplace, but also think about what do you need to do to tend to your relationships. That'll help you also in your life and in your human progress. What do we need to do to manage those relationships? Is it just checking in with one another, giving a phone call or sending a text, sharing pictures online? Does that help us sort of make sure that those relationships are staying strong? You're not doing that always for the other person either. Think of it in terms of, what do you need to do to maintain that relationship to help yourself feel good? Checking in with family members and friends. And then what are you doing to cope with the stress these days? It's an unusual type of stress that we're finding ourselves in. Lots of it is coming from the stress of the unknown. I'm here at home working. I don't know when I'll get to go back to my office. I don't know what my next month will look like. I sort of have an idea of maybe how the upcoming month will look like, but the month after that, I have really no idea. And that uncertainty is what's causing my stress currently. There's also uncertainty with financial decisions now, because I don't know what my work will look like, right? So I have to recognize that I have new and different stressors in my life, and then find ways to manage those stressors. So with the fiscal uncertainty, taking time to look at my family's budget and our checkbook balance, and just to see what are our options out there. What do we need to be prepared for? What things should I be thinking about? That's just going to give, I can't really change anything about whether I get furloughed from work, but it can give me a sense of control over, now at least I know, now I have knowledge that sort of gives a person a sense of control and can reduce that stress. And then you can also do other things. If you are worried about being furloughed from work or laid off from work, start investigating filing for unemployment claims. Connect with others. Maybe you have family members or friends who've been through that already and could give you some advice. Even just a little thing like updating your LinkedIn profile and starting to connect with others professionally, for just to sort of lay the groundwork for that. Doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit. And the idea is you're trying to do work that gives you a sense of control to reduce the stress, so that you're not constantly worrying about the unknown. So those are some tips and tricks for trying to maintain a new life balance in this new normal, this different time that we're in. So we've been through a lot today. You have earned your 2 recertification points. This is an enormous amount of information. We started out by taking good notes, and then I sort of backed off, reminding you to take notes and just letting yourself sort of absorb, consider, and ponder the different points that we've covered. If you have any questions, you are welcome to email me at any time. I thoroughly enjoy connecting with my administrative professional colleagues. So let me review our summary, and then we'll talk about how to connect online. So self-discipline is essential to ensure productivity. And guess what? That's one of the other things that we're really great at, is being able to carry on. We hear that a lot about administrative professionals. We have that ability to carry on throughout changes and different workplaces and changes to our work life. We're very good at finding and using organizational aids like planners, online calendars, and managing our workload. The trick today is just to think about new ways, maybe spend a little time investigating how to apply those organizational aids online or in this new remote environment. And then don't forget to make use of your downtime. Here on this slide, I say including multitasking and assisting coworkers, but I'd like you to consider using your downtime for those things that we talked about, your ergonomic health, looking outside at nature, getting up and going for a walk, maybe investigating ways, things like your budget and things that can help you reduce the stress. Using that downtime maybe for a little yoga or stretching or eating healthy to maintain that wellness in these very strange and different times. You can also offer those things out to your coworkers. We really work in a wonderful time where if I find something that's helpful to me, like a little yoga or meditation YouTube video, I can share that on my Facebook page so that my colleagues can pick it up, or on Twitter so that I can share it with my friends and family, right? That I can do that sort of relationship tending while also sharing good advice that I find helpful for my own use. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I love connecting with my administrative professional colleagues. I am so grateful. I have a wonderful local chapter of IAAP, but IAAP is so extensive, our network across the many states and nations, that we get to connect with each other all the time. So feel free to reach out. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I have a profile on LinkedIn. I do have a very generic name, so your best bet for finding me is using the phrase Penny Johnson, Madison College, and I'd love to connect with you. I share administrative professional tips and resources all the time because we just have a wealth of information out there online. And as I also mentioned earlier, that if you have any questions, you are welcome to email me. I'll follow up with the chapter to make sure that everyone receives their certification points, and I'll do that via email. So you'll have my email contact information and you can reach out to me at any time. I also have my email address on the screen, and I provide my college's webpage if you'd like to Google for more information about our administrative professional degree and how obtaining college courses or a college degree might help in your job security or your long-term career growth. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was a wonderful opportunity for us to connect, share ideas, and move our careers forward. Good luck in everything you find in your future.